Cowboys fans still say Dez caught it. Packers fans still say the rule book was clear. And somehow, that argument is not even the whole rivalry. It is just the newest version of an older question. What counts as revenge when the wound keeps changing stadiums? Because Cowboys-Packers is not just old NFL royalty. That is too clean, too easy. This rivalry is a debt that keeps moving. This is the rivalry where Dallas got stopped at the 2, frozen at Lambeau, then spent the 90s turning Brett Favre's trips to Texas into a dead end, before Green Bay answered with Dez, Rodgers, and Jordan Love. First, Green Bay made Tom Landry wait. Then Dallas made Brett Favre keep coming home from Texas with nothing. Then Dez Bryant reached for a ball at Lambeau. Aaron Rodgers stole a moment in Dallas. And Jordan Love walked into Arlington and made Cowboys fans feel like the same nightmare had found a new quarterback. That is why this one still has charge. Every era thinks it is settling the bill. Every era just hands the next fan base a new argument. And the first argument was cold before it was famous. Dallas was still trying to become Dallas, not the dynasty image, not the helmet that fills every TV debate. A franchise still chasing the January win that tells the league, we belong in this room. Green Bay was already standing there like the standard. On January 1st, 1967, the Packers went into Dallas and beat the Cowboys 34-27 for the NFL championship. That score matters because Dallas was close enough to spend the offseason replaying it, close enough to believe the door had opened, close enough to realize Green Bay had still walked through it first. And Dallas did not just lose by 7. The Cowboys had the ball at the Green Bay 2-yard line in the final seconds. Don Meredith rolled right, Dave Robinson crashed into him, and Tom Brown picked off the wounded throw in the end zone. Dallas was 2 yards from forcing a different history, and Green Bay closed the door. For Packers fans, it was another piece of the Lombardi world. Bart Starr, Vince Lombardi, a team that expected the biggest stage to bend toward them. For Cowboys fans, it was the first major bruise in this matchup, the kind you do not file away as one game, the kind that makes a young franchise feel like it reached for legitimacy and Green Bay slapped its hand away. Then came the game that gave the rivalry a temperature. December 31st, 1967, Lambeau Field, Packers 21, Cowboys 17. The Ice Bowl. That is not just a nickname. It is the kind of memory that makes a whole fan base feel trapped inside somebody else's mythology. 13 below 0, a frozen field, title game pressure, Dallas leading late, Green Bay out of time. The Packers trailed 17-14 with seconds left and no timeouts. If Bart Starr gets stuffed, the game is over. Vince Lombardi lets him sneak behind Jerry Kramer. Kramer gets the block. Starr disappears into the frozen line, and Lambeau erupts. That is the Ice Bowl, not just cold. A championship decided by inches, with Dallas watching history harden around them. That is where Lambeau became more than a stadium in this rivalry. For Green Bay, it was proof. Their place, their weather, their legend, their ending. For Dallas, it became the address of the original pain. The Ice Bowl became a scene Cowboys fans could never fully take away from Packers fans. And that is the part that matters. The Cowboys did not just lose twice. They lost twice before they had the kind of history that lets a franchise shrug. Green Bay got there first. Green Bay owned the coldest scene. Green Bay handed Dallas a bill the Cowboys could not pay yet. Dallas would get answers later. In 1980, the Cowboys finally won on Packers' home turf. Not Lambeau, but Milwaukee County Stadium, 28-7. That was not a playoff exorcism, and it was not the frozen field answer Cowboys fans still wanted. But it mattered because Dallas had finally walked into Wisconsin and made the old aura feel less untouchable. Then, January of 1983 gave Cowboys fans something louder. Dallas 37, Green Bay 26. A playoff answer at home. That mattered. It gave Cowboys fans something real, but it still did not feel like the whole debt was gone, because the original scar had a place attached to it. Dallas had beaten Green Bay in January, but not at Lambeau. Not in the building where the rivalry first learned how to hurt them. So the question stayed alive underneath the scoreboard. Can you really call it payback if it does not happen where the old pain happened? That question sat there for years. Then the 90s arrived, and Dallas stopped asking for respect. Dallas started collecting. This is the stretch Packers fans remember differently than the old Ice Bowl films. Not black and white mythology, not frozen legend. This was Brett Favre trying to climb into the NFL's top tier and running into a Cowboys machine that would not move. After the 1993 season, Green Bay went to Dallas for a divisional playoff game. Cowboys 27, Packers 17. That one was the warning. Favre was becoming Favre. Green Bay was starting to feel dangerous again. But in Dallas, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, and that whole Cowboys era were not interested in anybody else's rise. The Packers arrived with hope. Dallas sent them home with a ceiling. That is what makes this middle chapter so important. Green Bay was building towards something. Favre gave them belief. Mike Holmgren gave them shape. And Dallas kept making that awakening run through Texas. The next January made it harsher. January 8th, 1995. Cowboys 35, Packers 9. That is not a heartbreak score. That is a scoreboard that takes away every comfortable excuse. You cannot tell yourself one bounce decided it. You cannot call it one of those days and move on cleanly. Green Bay came to Dallas and got handled. For Cowboys fans, this was the revenge years finally looking like revenge. Not because it erased the Ice Bowl. Nothing erases that. But because Dallas was now making Green Bay feel the same kind of January helplessness. Then, Green Bay had to come back again. January 14th, 1996. NFC Championship game. Cowboys 38, Packers 27. 3 straight playoff trips to Dallas. 3 straight seasons ending there. And this was not just young Favre learning the league anymore. This was MVP-level Favre, with Green Bay close enough to believe it could finally kick the door in. That is when a rivalry gets inside your head. The Packers could win enough to get to the moment. They could bring Favre confidence, momentum, the feeling that maybe this was finally the year. And then Dallas was waiting like a locked door. That is the emotional flip. The old Cowboys had once stared at Green Bay, wondering when the breakthrough would come. Now, Green Bay was staring at Dallas. Same January pressure, different building. For Dallas fans, that was not abstract payback. That was a full chapter of it. Every January win made the old argument sound different. Green Bay had the Ice Bowl. Dallas had the 90s. Green Bay had the frozen origin story. Dallas had Favre leaving Texas again and again with the season over. With Favre as Green Bay's quarterback, the Packers went 0-9 in Dallas. That is not a footnote. That is a curse with a street address. And if the story ended there, Cowboys fans could make a strong case that the bill had been paid. But rivalries like this do not end when one side feels satisfied. They wait for the next wound. Even the handoff between Packers eras ran through Dallas. In 2007, in the last Cowboys-Packers game at Texas Stadium, Favre got knocked out and Aaron Rodgers came in. Dallas still won, 37-27, but Packers fans got a glimpse of the next quarterback who would spend the next decade making Cowboys fans miserable. Then, in 2008, Dallas finally did something it had never done before, win at Lambeau Field. Cowboys 27, Packers 16. For Dallas, that mattered. It was not January, but it was one more answer to the old frozen address. But when the rivalry tilted back toward Green Bay, it did not tiptoe in. First came the warning shot. November 7th, 2010, Packers 45, Cowboys 7. It was not January, but it was ugly enough to feel like a reminder. In Green Bay, this matchup could still turn on Dallas fast. And before Dez, there was already a warning in Dallas. In 2013, with Aaron Rodgers hurt, Matt Flynn and Green Bay erased a 26-3 deficit at AT&T Stadium and won 37-36. That is the kind of game Cowboys fans hate because it did not even require the final boss. Rodgers was out, and Green Bay still found a way to make Dallas wear it. Then came January 11th, 2015. And this is where the comment section starts before the sentence is finished. Dez Bryant at Lambeau. Cowboys, Packers. Divisional round. Dallas down late, trying to take the lead. Tony Romo throws it deep to Dez. Dez goes up. Dez comes down. Dez reaches for the goal line. And the ruling becomes one of those football arguments that does not die. Catch or no catch. The officials ruled it incomplete. Green Bay won 26-21. And the reason Cowboys fans never let it go is that the league later changed the catch standard in a way that made the old argument feel even worse. Packers fans can say the officials applied the rule that existed that day. Cowboys fans can say the rule itself stole the moment. If you are a Packers fan, the rule was the rule and Green Bay survived the moment. If you are a Cowboys fan, that play is the modern version of the rivalry refusing to let Dallas leave Lambeau with closure. That is the kind of rivalry moment that lives longer than the final score. Packers fans say Dallas had its chance and the rule took over. Cowboys fans say the game was stolen the moment Dez landed. The play became a personality test for the rivalry. Dez in the air, the ball near the turf. Cowboys fans saying he caught it. Packers fans saying the ruling was right. And Lambeau, once again, keeping the last word. That loss did not erase Dallas in the 90s, but it changed the emotional shape of the modern rivalry. Green Bay turned Dallas's oldest setting of pain into a fresh argument. 2 years later, the pain moved south. January 15, 2017. Divisional round in Dallas. Packers 34, Cowboys 31. This one was supposed to be the Cowboys' answer. Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott had given Dallas a new kind of hope. Not nostalgia. Not another conversation about what the franchise used to be. A young team, at home, with the chance to make the modern Packers chapter bend back toward Dallas. And Aaron Rodgers took it from them. That is the part Cowboys fans remember. Not just that Green Bay won. It is that the game became one of those Rodgers games where the other fan base can feel the ending coming and still cannot stop it. Dallas fights back. The building believes again. Then came 3rd and 20. Rodgers rolled left, threw across his body to Jared Cook on the sideline, and Cook dragged both feet just inside the white. One impossible throw, one impossible catch, and Mason Crosby finished it with a 51-yarder as time expired. The Packers walked out with a 34-31 playoff win. That is where the modern rivalry became cruel. Dallas needed a win that changed the emotional math, a win that let Cowboys fans stop hearing about Lambeau, Dez, and Rodgers doing Rodgers things in their building. Instead, Green Bay added another clip to the pile. That is a different kind of scar from Dez. Dez was the argument. Rodgers was the dagger. One made Cowboys fans feel robbed. The other made them feel helpless. And together, they turned the rivalry into something worse for Dallas. Green Bay was no longer only the team with Lambeau behind it. Green Bay could come into Dallas too, and take the moment Dallas needed most. And even Mike McCarthy's return to Lambeau became part of it. In 2022, Dallas led 28-14 in the fourth quarter. Rodgers hit rookie Christian Watson twice. Green Bay dragged it to overtime, and the Packers won 31-28. It became Rodgers' final start in this rivalry. One more Dallas lead that Green Bay refused to let stand. So by the time the rivalry reached January 14, 2024, the Cowboys were not just playing a wild card game. They were playing a chance to stop the pattern. Dallas was at home. Dallas was the 2 seed. Green Bay was the 7. The Cowboys had won 16 straight at home. Mike McCarthy was coaching against the franchise he once took to a Super Bowl. Dallas had every reason to believe this was the day the modern chapter finally changed. Instead, Green Bay walked into Arlington with Jordan Love and made the room go quiet. Packers 48, Cowboys 32. And even that score does not fully explain how it felt. Green Bay became the first number 7 seed to win a playoff game since the NFL added the 7th playoff spot. The Packers led by 32 in the fourth quarter. Darnell Savage housed a pick 6. Aaron Jones scored 3 times. Jordan Love looked like the calmest person in the stadium. Green Bay did not sneak around the edges of that game. The Packers punched Dallas early, kept punching, and turned a home playoff stage into a public unraveling. Jordan Love looked calm. Aaron Jones kept finding the end zone. A young Packers team made the Cowboys look like they were the ones carrying the pressure of every old failure. That is what made it humiliating. Dallas was not losing to Lombardi, Favre, or peak Rodgers. This was the young Packers chapter, the one Dallas was supposed to stop before the story got bigger. Instead, Love made it bigger in one afternoon. That is why the 2024 game lands so hard in this rivalry. It was not the Ice Bowl. It was not Texas Stadium. It was not Dez at Lambeau or Rodgers with the late knife in Dallas. It was the next Packers quarterback arriving in Dallas and making the same franchise feel trapped by the same question. When does Dallas finally get the win that feels bigger than the pain? That is what makes Cowboys-Packers dangerous. Both sides have real ammunition, and neither fan base has to invent its case. Because every time Dallas thinks it has found a way out of the old Green Bay shadow, the Packers hand the Cowboys another image they cannot shake. Packers fans can start with Lombardi, Starr, and the Ice Bowl. They can point to Dez. They can point to Rodgers in Dallas. They can point to Jordan Love turning Arlington into the latest chapter. Cowboys fans can fire back with the 90s. Aikman, Emmitt, Irvin, Favre coming to Texas 3 straight postseasons and leaving with nothing. They can say Green Bay had the first wound, but Dallas made the Packers pay for it over and over. And both sides are right enough to keep fighting. That is the trap. The revenge never lands in the exact same place twice. Green Bay hurt Dallas at Lambeau. Dallas hurt Green Bay in Texas Stadium. Green Bay reopened Dallas at Lambeau with Dez. Then in Dallas with Rodgers. Then in Arlington with Love. It is a bill passed across generations. So what counts as payback now? For Dallas, is one playoff win over Green Bay enough? Or does it have to happen at Lambeau in January? For Green Bay, did Jordan Love's 48-32 win settle the 90s debt? Or start a new Cowboys argument? That is why this series still feels unfinished. Not because Dallas never hit back. They did. Not because Green Bay owns every chapter. They do not. It feels unfinished because every time one side thinks the ledger finally makes sense, the other side adds a moment fans can never stop replaying. Ice Bowl. Favre trapped in Dallas. Dez. Rodgers in Dallas. Jordan Love at 48-32. So Cowboys fans, what would actually end this for you? Any playoff win over Green Bay? Or does it have to happen at Lambeau in January? And Packers fans, did Love finally close the 1990s bill? Or did he just make sure this rivalry stays angry for another generation? If this rivalry brought back an argument you still have, membership is open below. Members help choose the next deep dive and can get their name in a future end card shoutout.